بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم. طيب, so we're still in the Hadith of Jibril alayhi salam. We started with the introduction of the Hadith and the etiquettes, basically some of the etiquettes of students of knowledge and how to go to the teacher and seek knowledge and appearance and dress, etc. And then we went into the first part of the Hadith when the Prophet ﷺ was asked about Islam, and he said Islam is, what did he say? أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصوم رمضان وتحج البيت. Right. So we started with the first part. We did already the requirements of La ilaha illallah and the requirements or conditions of Muhammad Rasulullah. And then we did the Salah. And so today we'll start with, inshallah, Zakat. Right. What does Zakat mean? Charity. What is it? It's 2.5% of your wealth in some instances, yes. Purification, yes, very good. So zakat in the English language, it's probably requires a lot more definition than just charity. It has the meaning, like he said, of purification as well as growth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. Take from their wealth so that you may purify them and basically grow them in spirituality. And also, some say it grows your wealth, because the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا نَقَصَ مَالًا مِنْ صَدَقَةٍ, that wealth is never decreased with sadaqah. Right? In fact, charity increases your wealth and increases your barakah. So, the literal meaning is that of purification and growth. Right? الطهارة والنمو. So the word tazkiyah, we study tazkiyat al-nafs, the purification of the soul, it comes from this as well. Right? So zakat is a form of purification. It purifies your wealth. It also purifies your nafs, because it gets rid of the evil of stinginess and greed. Right? We find in capitalistic society sometimes their focus is accumulating wealth, but they don't care about those who are less fortunate. Right? There's not a position, for those that are less fortunate in the capitalistic society. Either you make it or you don't. You're from the winners or the losers, right? So they don't take into concern giving charity and helping those that are less fortunate. But in Islam, it's actually a pillar of our deen. We're obligated, if we are of those who possess a certain amount of wealth, to share that wealth with those who are less fortunate. So, the technical definition is basically giving a portion of wealth from a specific category to a specific type of people, right? So basically, it's not obligatory upon every type of wealth. There's certain wealth that zakat is obligatory upon, and there's other wealth that it's not obligatory upon. Also, it's not obligatory upon every person, and there's only certain groups of people who qualify to get the zakat. It's wajib upon every Muslim that's free who owns the nisab. The nisab is like the minimum amount of wealth, right? And he has to have complete ownership of it, right? Not partial or half, or not reach that amount. We find this kind of distinguishes itself from other ibadat. Can anybody tell me in this definition of who it's required upon, how it's different from one who's obligated to make salat, for example? So it's wajib upon every Muslim, every free Muslim who owns the nisab, like the wealth and it's reached the nisab. He owns a certain amount of wealth. It's reached a certain criteria of when it's going to be given, and he has to give it, or she has to give it. What's missing from this one that we have sometimes in other ibadat? So what is the person required to make salat? What does he have to have? What's that? Not the shurut of salat, but this is like the conditions of acceptability of the ibadah from a person, the individual. So he has to be Muslim. What's that? Aqil, sane. What else? Baligh, mature of age, right? So the difference, if you can see here, is not mentioned aqil or baligh. Why is that the case?
Those people are not exempt from it.
They're not exempt, right? Even an insane person or a young child, they're not exempt. Why? They haven't reached the age of accountability. How are they not exempt?
Their guardian has to take care of them.
Okay, close. So yes,
Somebody else has to do, them.
yes, somebody has to do it on their behalf because the obligation is upon the wealth itself, not necessarily upon the individual, right? So say, for example, a crazy person, he inherited millions of dollars, right? There's still zakat due upon that millions of dollars, right? Or a young child, like he said, for example, some, subhanAllah, their parents passed away and they're orphans, but their parents left them a great amount of wealth. Their guardians have to pay that wealth, right? So the obligation is upon the wealth, and that's different. It's like a unique thing between the regular ibadat and then zakat in particular. طيب. What's the difference between zakat and sadaqah? استغفر الله زكاة ليس مهم نعم مهم جدا نعم حتى الزكاة إذا عندك. So you said muhim is important, you said sadaqah is not important. You mean wajib? Yes, that's more important. Yes, zakat is wajib and sadaqah according to it depends on what you mean, what's meant by the word sadaqah. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in this ayah we just read, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ بِهَا وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ. This is meant zakat. So sometimes sadaqah can come in the Quran or the Sunnah meaning zakat. But if it's not in that definition or in that sense, then it means the extra charity that's not obligatory upon you. Right? There's several differences. One, like he said, zakat is wajib, obligatory, whereas sadaqah is mustahab or encouraged. What's another difference?
Zakat, you need to pay for once a year.
It depends. So zakat you have to give at specific times. For example, in sadaqah you don't have a specific time. You can give it any time. What else? What is it?
7 mustahab.
It's specific people, specific categories. Yes, zakat is for specific categories, whereas sadaqah you can give to anyone. What else? Yes. Yes. In zakat, there's specific categories of wealth that are zakatable, whereas sadaqah, it's far broader. It's much more broad, right? It can be helping somebody also. It can be smiling. It can be other things. Like the Prophet said, "Ibtisam fi wajhi akhika sadaqah," right? Smiling in the face of your brother is a form of charity, a form of sadaqah. طيب, what else? You can't give zakat to certain family members, right? That you would be responsible for. So the father shouldn't give zakat to the son, or the son shouldn't give zakat to the father because it's an obligation upon you, right? However, sadaqah, you can give sadaqah to your family. So those are some of the differences between zakat and sadaqah. The Prophet ﷺ said, meaning both zakat and sadaqah, sadaqah tudfi'u al-khatiyya kama yudfi'u al-ma'u an-nar. That sadaqah or charity and zakat wipes away your mistakes or your sins or your shortcomings as water puts out the fire, right? So it's a very blessed thing. Zakat obviously is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the non-obligatory one, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hadith Qudsi, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا افْتَرَضْتُهُ عَلَيْهِ. That my servant does not draw closer to me with something more beloved to me than that which I have made obligatory upon him. Right? So the fara'id always take precedence over the sunan. And completing the fara'id in the best of manners is far more important. Right? So even like a small amount of zakat is better than a large amount of sadaqah. And the fara'id of salat, for example, are better than the nawafil, because that's something that Allah has obligated upon us. So what are some of the wisdoms of Zakat.
Distribute the wealth.
Distribution of wealth, right? Like not keeping it locked up in a certain segment of society, but sharing it with those that are less fortunate.
And also eliminating poverty.
Yes, it helps to decrease, or if done properly, sometimes it even eliminates poverty, subhanAllah. There were certain times in the Muslim Ummah where they couldn't find some people to give zakat to. And towards the end of time, when Isa alayhi salam comes back, and there will be peace, and he will rule, the Muslims, there won't be like need for charity anymore, because everybody is so in plenty, subhanAllah. So yeah, it could actually eliminate poverty. So that's why the scholars say give, subhanAllah, before there's a time that you won't be able to give. What is it? It purifies your wealth, right? It purifies yourself and it purifies your wealth, like we got in the ayah. So sometimes we make mistakes in our business transactions. Sometimes we might, subhanAllah, especially in modern day societies, we have credit cards, we have banks and something like that. So subhanAllah, giving the sadaqah or giving the zakat will help us to keep safe and purify our wealth, inshaAllah. And also the self, the nafs, because the nafs always wants to accumulate more and more and more. But when you train it to give, and you know that this is demonstration of your iman, that you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And you believe in His promise, that's why you share, and that's why you give. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you with that. So it's also purifying the soul. You get not to be attached to the dunya. Allah gave you this gift, and He can take it away from you. So He's giving you a test. Are you going to spend it righteously or not? Right? That which you spend in this dunya, you will reap it in the akhirah. That which you keep in this dunya, you will lose it in the akhirah. Right? That's why when the Prophet ﷺ, he came and he said to Aisha, what did you do with the sheep? He had a sheep that he wanted to donate. And she said, I gave it all away, except I kept the katif, the shoulder, because the Prophet used to love the shoulder of the lamb. And he said, so you kept everything except the shoulder. Meaning that she put everything in the akhirah that she will get in Yawm al-Qiyamah afterwards, except the thing that they kept. Right? SubhanAllah. So also it has, it's called ta'leef bayn al-nas. It relieves tension between the classes, right? Because you can imagine, subhanAllah, if a society is based like there's extremely wealthy people and extremely poor people, and the poor people see these wealthy people every day, they don't give them anything, they don't help them at all, it starts to develop animosity and hatred and enmity. And this is not, we don't want this in the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Also, it could lead to class warfare. You find in many revolutions what happened. The poor were taxed beyond their means, or the middle class was taxed beyond their means, and they revolted and they fought against the rich. But if the rich were taking care of those that are less fortunate and giving them from their charity and giving them from their wealth and sharing, then there wouldn't have been those type of wars or clashes or destruction of society. It helps to relieve jealousy too. If a person is rich and he doesn't give any sadaqah, subhanAllah, the poor person might start developing a form of jealousy towards that, or evil eye, or something like that. So giving sadaqah helps to balance the society and rid it from animosity and bad feelings between each other. Also, it's just a basic demonstration of humanity. If you really have some type of emotions or feelings in your heart, and you see those people suffering and you don't do anything to relieve their suffering, then you're not really being a good Muslim or a good human being in general, right? SubhanAllah, even in one of the most charitable countries, despite their shortcomings and everything, is the United States, right? They give a lot of wealth to poor people around the world, and in this society, there's so many types of organizations, right? And SubhanAllah, sometimes, like Ibn Taymiyyah said, that Allah can give aid or help to a non-Muslim society for the righteousness or the good or the justice that they do. So as Muslims, alhamdulillah, also the Muslim lands, of course, give a lot of charity. They were supposed to. But I'm just saying that it's ingrained in a good person, in general, that they want to help those that are less fortunate, right? It's hard to see human suffering and people that are going through hardship or poverty and just walk right by them, ignore them, not even care about them. That means that you have a hardened heart, right? Imagine if you were in that situation, how would you feel? Nobody to help you, nobody to care about you, nobody to clothe you. Your children are starving, you don't have any food to feed them. You lost your home, you're homeless. How would you feel? And then this person, he's throwing money in the trash, he's spending $1,000 on a meal, $1 million on cars, has huge castles and stuff like that. He can't even give a small portion to help you, right? So that leads to problems in society. Also, giving zakat increases the barakah of the society. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that ما منع قوم زكاة أموالهم إلا منع القطر من السماء. That a people do not cease to give the zakat except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause the water from the sky to be ceased, to stop raining, to decrease the barakah, right? So not giving zakat is could lead to a form of punishment for the society. Also, the zakat is a means to help those who are, warriors or striving for the cause of Allah, like the Muslim government, the Muslim armies, etc. Zakat is a form to support them, to increase and protect the society, to spread Islam. Also, it helps those who are in debt. We'll discuss these in more detail, inshallah, but those who are in debt, zakat is one of the means to help them out of debt, also helping society. It helps those who are, strangers. They've come to a strange country and they lost their wealth, for example, or they got robbed or whatever. Zakat comes to help them out. Okay, zakat in general is obligatory on basically four main categories. That's it. There's far more detail, inshallah, but we'll just try to finish this chapter at least tonight on zakat. So the free grazing livestock, right? Domesticated livestock. What's livestock? What do you guys think? Camels? Cows? Sheep? Goats, etc. Those are the livestock. That which is produced from the earth, like the crops, etc. And also something that's extracted from the earth. There's a difference of opinion, but sometimes like treasures of the earth or oil or other types of wealth that is extracted from the earth. And then the third is, silver and gold or something that comes in its place. And number 4 is the merchandise, like prepared for sale, right? Those are the 4 main categories of zakat. And you don't pay zakat until it reaches the nisab, the given amount that is supposed to be due. And the hawl has passed upon it, a certain time has passed upon it, except for the plants. It's at the time of harvest you should give the zakat, or with the animals when it reaches a certain number you have to give the zakat. For the livestock, I'm sure, does anybody here have a farm or own livestock? No. So we don't have to get the details, but basically the minimum amount for camels is 5. For cows, it's 30. And for sheep and goats, etc., it's 40. So for every 5 camels, you have to give a certain type of zakat. For every 30 cows, you have to give a certain type of zakat. And for every 40 goats or sheep, you have to give a certain type of zakat. Well, like I said, we won't get into the details. We'll save that for fiqh class, inshallah, which we will hope to start probably after Ramadan. The zakat that comes out of the earth is 2 types. The plants, crops, grain or fruit that can be measured and stored, right? So the crops that can't be stored or measured, there's no zakat upon it, because it would, if you store it or save it, then it would be corrupted before its time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His mercy didn't make that obligatory upon us. The other one, it's 10% of the entire crop basically, for the one that's watered by rain, like you're not doing any effort, it just grows naturally without any effort. And it's 5% if you have to go and irrigate it yourself, right? So every time the crop comes out and you reap it, you donate a portion of that for Sadaqah, and subhanAllah, that will increase the barakah.
For crop, there is no any certain amount.
What is it?
The crop.
Crops? Yeah, there's a certain amount. It's khamsat awsuq. It's approximately 340 pounds, I guess you can say. Some say 290 pounds if you translate it directly. And the metals, if it's like, gold or silver, then it's the same nisab that gold and silver, which we're going to talk about inshallah, which is like basically 2.5% for the gold. And then they say like if it's other metals like copper, or there's a dispute about these as well, but in general, if it's a precious metal or something like that, the scholars put it in the same category as gold and silver. So if he reaches that amount, the nisab, it should be paid for as well. Lunar calendar, yeah, for both. So for the ones that are coming out of the earth and the animals, obviously when it reaches the nisab, it doesn't matter if it's a whole year or not, right? It's due upon that wealth in particular. But with monetary or goods that are stored, then you count it from the whole lunar year. If, for example, you have the nisab of something, and it's almost like, say, a whole year, but on the 9th month, you buy a car or you buy something, or you have some type of expense, and it goes below the nisab. And then it comes back to the nisab before the year is over. What should you do?
I think once you buy that car or whatever, and it goes below the value, you have to restart it.
Yes, mashallah. So yes, in Allah's mercy, subhanAllah, like it makes it so easy for us. If it goes below the nisab at any point within that year, it starts over after you reach the nisab again. Yes.
Do we follow the silver or gold standard?
For the dollar, or for currency, we should follow the gold standard, right? Because if you do the equivalency of silver, it will come out to a far lesser amount, which won't benefit as much, as if you do it in the gold standard. So most scholars say that you do it in the gold standard for currencies that we have, like the dollar. What is it about?
Not in like the gold standard, like the dollar.
The dollar, I think like 7,600, something like that, roughly. So it's based upon, you would calculate per gram. Let's see. So we'll get to it right now, inshallah. There's, for the dirham, for the silver, it's approximately 595 grams, right? 200 dirham. And it's basically almost like $1 a gram right now, currently. So that would only be like $590, right? So if you have silver, you pay that upon the silver. Gold, it's about 85 grams of gold. And that, I think gold now is about almost $90 a gram. So you multiply 90 times 85. What does that come up to? Anybody good in math? I think it's around 8,000, something like that, right? Yeah.
There is different kind of gold, kind of like 14, 18, 24. So
Just whatever gold you have calculated. Yeah. Yeah. Estimate roughly based upon the pure gold, inshallah. So that's roughly like 2.5% of our wealth that we give. SubhanAllah, look at Allah's mercy. Just, 2.5 out of 100, and all the rest is for you or whatever you want to do. And some people, they get so stingy about it. SubhanAllah. Yes, brother.
If you didn't know when it started, say you're not keeping perfect track, you just took each Ramadan, whatever was in your bank account, you could have donated 2.5, right? And just said if it's over, Allah is charity.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, it's acceptable in a sense, so the scholars, they say that say for example, you have a business, right? And you owe zakat on it. You've reached the nisab, and a year has passed, right? But within that year, you're making more money. It would be difficult to like start over every single month or every week or every day, you know? So the scholars say that any money you make that's built upon that original business investment, and it comes to the end of the year, you add it all together and just pay it at one time. You know, that makes it easier for everybody, and that's probably the strongest opinion. The merchandise in the store as well, like if it's, you know, you're in general obligated. So things that you keep for sale, you should pay zakat upon it, right? So there's certain transactions that you do daily that goes upon the zakatable wealth, but you count the amount of stock that you have. If that stock reaches the zakatable amount, you have to pay zakat upon it, right? If it's under the zakatable amount, you don't have to pay zakat on it. If it decreases while you're within the year, the same thing, it starts all over again. Right? With rentals, it's the same. It's like a business, you know, you pay upon the cumulative nisab for the year, and then if more adds onto it throughout the year, you add that and you calculate it at one time, at a certain time every year, and you pay that whole thing that's due for the rental thing. If you have houses that you're flipping, according to many scholars, you subhanAllah have to pay the zakat upon the property as long as you own it, right? So if you are in debt, then in general there's no zakat until the debt is paid off. Scholars they say like with mortgages, you know, like we're not going to be able to go to all the masail or the questions and the details of the fiqh obviously in this small session, but just to get an idea, inshallah. But they say like, you know, you can't. Some people they take out interest-based mortgages, and they say, oh, I have like, you know, 500,000 debt, I owe to the bank, I can't pay zakat. But they're making over 100,000 a year in salary, and they're just paying a certain, you know, small percentage towards that mortgage. In that case, I think, you know, one to be on the safe side, they should calculate their yearly earnings. You know, if it's breached the nisab, they should pay the zakat, because this is something that's going to be paid for 30 years, and it's not the same type of debt that the scholars were talking about in the past, like legitimate debts that you take without interest, etc. Wallahu a'lam. Yes.
What if you have like a business that does services instead of like purchases?
So services, if you're cumulative, you know, if you've saved up enough money that's reached the nisab and the hawl, you know, the time has passed, then you pay the zakat upon it, right? So for example, a mechanic, he earns his wages through his skills, you know. So his wages, if his savings add up to the nisab after the year is passed, he pays zakat on that.
What's the amount?
What's that?
Never show the amount, how much you have to have.
The minimum amount in cash? About between 7,000 and 8,000, 7,500, something like that.
Less than the
If it's less than that, you don't have to pay zakat. Yeah.
So my daughter just opened an account. She goes to all the school.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's if she reaches past that, then she has to start. Before that, she's okay, inshallah. She don't pay yet. Yeah. Yes.
So, they need to pay Zakat 2.5% or something like that.
Yes.
So, what happened is some of the, let's say, give the Zakat, I mean, not directly, but through some of the institutions.
Mm.
And they take some of this for the administration. Is it?
Yes, because
Is it allowed?
yes, because from the categories of zakat, which we'll go over right now, is the people who are in charge of distributing the zakat. They're allowed to take their allowance or pay or salary from the zakat money because that's their job.
Because they got the Amil.
They're amilin alayha.
But I heard that the Amil Zakat is somebody is appointed by the government. not
Yes.
Individual institutions. That's what
Yeah, but unfortunately we don't have that nowadays, so we can't say like, you know, we can't pay zakat because there's no Islamic government that's enforcing it or collecting it.
we give our Zakat and then we put, on top of that we put some administration so that we basically we do not choose our Zakat. It's-
You can do that too. You mean like you pay extra because you want your zakat specific amount to go for? Yeah, you can do that too. No. And also the organization should be clear about what they're charging and their fees, etc. How much percentage goes to the amilin alayha, because some organizations, subhanAllah, the CEO might be driving. It's a halal, but I don't know whether they got their wealth or not. But if he's taking from the funds that are meant for the poor people and going beyond what is necessary, I have question with that. I think if you're working for an Islamic charity organization, you should take what you need to live and to survive and to, like a normal salary basically, but not like some type of extravagance that's you're driving like the best cars, you live in mansions, etc., and you're taking your salary from that. I think it's I found some organizations that are very good. The percentage of what they use for the administrative is very low, and those are the ones I tried to find. Mashallah.
So in that case, is it okay for us to ask the president in every dollar how much you take for administration?
Yeah, it's from your right to ask. They don't have to tell you, but you can ask, inshallah. The personal property, there's no zakat upon it, right? So if you use anything like your house or your car, you don't have to pay zakat upon it. For the woman's jewelry, there's a difference of opinion. Some scholars, they put it under the same category. It's personal property. It's for personal use. There's no zakat upon it. Other scholars say no, if it's gold or silver, it reaches nisab, the woman has to pay zakat upon it. For me personally, I think it's a strong. They both have very strong evidences, so I would just be like on the safe side, especially if it's a lot of gold, a lot of silver. To be on the safe side, give the zakat upon it. You don't lose anything, and you get blessings for it, and you leave yourself away from the disagreement of the ulama. Right, to be on the safe side. Wallahu a'lam. If it's like a very small amount or something like that, then alhamdulillah, it probably doesn't even reach the nisab. But what is Zakat al-Fitr? What is it? Yes, the zakat after Ramadan. Right, after the day of Eid, to help those who are less fortunate, so they can participate in the Eid and have some celebratory acts with us and eat. Sometimes that's their first meal of the day, subhanAllah. There are people around the world that don't even have enough to have a meal. May Allah make it easy for them. What's that? It's a purification for your fasting as well, yes. And it should be done before the Salat al-Eid, if possible. And nowadays, with the hardship of delivering or getting the food across, some scholars allow for a couple of days beforehand, etc., to make sure that it's distributed on time. Yes.
Does it have to be in food?
According to some scholars, it should be from staple items that were known at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Other scholars have given the fatwa for the ease that they can donate in currency, and the organization can go and buy the food for the people. Alhamdulillah, I think Dar es-Salaam facilitates the actual food, which is on the safe side too, if you're able to do that. Those who receive the zakat, we'll just go through them quickly, inshallah, and then we can probably wrap it up. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل فريضة من الله والله عليم حكيم. So sadaqah or zakat here, this is what I said sometimes. Sadaqah means zakat in the ayah in the Quran. It's meant for the fuqara, the poor, and the masakin, the poor. But I'll show you what the difference between the two in a second, inshallah. And those who are employed to collect the funds, العاملين عليها. And مؤلفة قلوبهم, the ones who were trying to bring them to Islam, or new Muslims trying to, strengthen their iman, or people of power and position that can help the Muslims or relieve, punishment or hardship from the Muslims. And the captives, those who are captive, we are allowed to, and even highly encouraged to free them if we're able to with zakat money. And those who are in debt, we can help those who are in debt to get out of their debt, and those who fight for the cause of Allah. And the traveler, when the traveler is cut off, they have the other means. These are the categories that we're allowed to give the zakat to. So the difference between the miskin and the faqir, what's the difference? Anybody know? So the faqir is somebody who doesn't have anything, or they say less than half of what it needs for them to survive on a daily basis or on a weekly or monthly basis, right? The miskin, he has some, but it's not. It's more than half, but still it's not sufficient, according to the scholars. Some say that the faqir has nothing and the miskin has something, but both of them are on the poverty line, right? They're both in poverty. Just the faqir is in a more severe state of poverty.
Dependent on someone.
Yes.
Is he fakir?
It depends on who's dependent upon.
Like he depend on his brother. If his brother poor,
Yeah, if he's dependent, if he's of age and he's,
then like 30.
yeah, he's faqir. I mean, but in terms of if his brother's taking care of him, he's not in need of zakat money from other people, but the money that the brother's giving to him, according to some scholars, can be zakatable. Like he can give a portion of his zakat to his brothers and sisters because he's not technically responsible for them. The fathers and the children is different, but the brothers and sisters, it's okay if you want to count that as zakat for them. The third, al-amilin alayha, those are the ones who collect and administer the distribution of the zakat. Obviously we need people to work full-time on this to help, collect the zakat and help distribute the zakat. Number 4, the ones whose hearts need to be reconciled. For example, to prevent a greater evil, to make their hearts softer towards the Muslims, to help them come to Islam. Some say it should be to the Muslims only that are new Muslims, but some say that you can use it for even non-Muslims if it's going to relieve or bring relief to the Muslims. Number 5, the slaves or the captives. To free a slave, you can use zakat. The captives imprison Muslims unjustly, for example, you can use zakat to help relieve them. Number 6 is the ones who are in debt. And there's 2 types: the ones who borrow for other people to help other people or to reconcile between other people, and others who get in debt for their own selves and they can't get out of it. Either way, it's permissible for the authorities to give zakat to them. Number 7, the ones who are fighting for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are the ones, like back in the day, there wasn't an organized army, right? So if a person nowadays is in the modern army and gets a salary from the government, etc., that's not considered zakat, to give them the zakat, right? Unless the government wants to take their funds to give to them for zakat, that's something different. But in terms of you giving a sadaqah or zakat, the one who's like a paid army, person is different than the old days. If it's a volunteer army, that's something else. And then number 8 is the wayfarer, the one who's traveling and he doesn't have enough money to get back home. It's permissible to give zakat for that person to get back to his home. In terms of those who are not able to get zakat, like we said, anybody know? I just mentioned it before, but yes.
The Prophet's household.
The Prophet's household, they're not supposed to take the zakat, right? They're actually given a stipend from the khumus, and even to the day in some countries, the Ahlul Bayt, they get that stipend, but it's not zakat, it's different from zakat. Also, the ones that you're responsible for, you can't pay zakat to your children or for your parents because it's obligatory upon us to take care of those categories. And it goes all the way up and all the way down. So your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, if they are in need and you have the ability, it's obligatory upon you to take care of them. Therefore, we don't give them zakat. Just also, inshallah, we don't fall into this category, but some people, they try to play around with zakat and they're really not fooling anybody except themselves. They don't think they're going to fool Allah, but for example, their zakat is due, and right before it's due, they'll go and buy something on purpose to avoid paying the zakat. A'udhu billah. This is something that we don't do, obviously. You should think of zakat as a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's given you this wealth that you are able to give zakat. Imagine how many people around the world, they don't have the ability to eat, subhanAllah, let alone give zakat. Right? They don't have home, they don't have clothing sometimes. We could look at our brothers and sisters right now in Palestine. They've lost everything. So many people lost everything. And look at the luxury we live in. Even like the most, low-paying worker here, he's living much better than much of the world. I would say too, sometimes, subhanAllah, even the homeless in America, they live better than some of the poor in other areas. I'm not saying they're going through its hardships as well, obviously, but relatively speaking, subhanAllah, in these societies we have a lot of wealth and ease compared to other places in the world. But regardless, anywhere, suffering, a poor person is a poor person, whether it be in America or elsewhere. However, the point is, if you have wealth, think of the blessings Allah has given you throughout your life and try to give back in thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He may bless you in your wealth and increase you in your wealth. Because just as the one He's given you, He can take it away from you any moment. We've seen millionaires lose everything, right? SubhanAllah, in an instant, in a crash, in a stock market crash, in a deal gone bad, right? Or imagine a person loses his health. How much millions would they give to get back their health? They've been diagnosed with cancer, they're going to die any moment. They're going to lose a limb, right? How much money they would pay to get it back. So these are blessings that are, we can't even count. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us on a regular basis. The least we can do is do our obligation of that music, subhanAllah, I won't say music, but minor 2.5%. And if you give sadaqah on top of that, alhamdulillah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues in that hadith, وَلَا يَزَالُ عَبْدِ يَتَقَرَّبُ إِلَيْهِ بِالنَّوَافِلِ حَتَّى أُحِبُّهُ. That a person will continue with the nawafil until Allah loves him or loves her. So after the faridah, go to the extra, inshallah. And we finish zakat, and we'll do, hopefully.
So which one is better? Give zakat to people around you here or give somebody else? In another country or something?
In general, you should do the zakat at the place that you are in. If there, for example, there's an excessive need abroad, there's more need, for example, or there's, family or relatives that are in dire poverty, and you're able to give, the zakat over there, then inshallah that's acceptable as well. Yes.
If you don't pay zakat, you're supposed to be out and help more.
What's that?
If you don't pay zakat,
Yeah.
are you going to be treated as a non-believer?
That's a good question. So there are some scholars, and we discussed last week, Jazakallah khair, I forgot that point. Yeah, last week we said that the tarak as-salat, the one who leaves the salah, is considered by some of them, or one madhab, as a non-believer, a non-Muslim, because he's not establishing the most important thing. And we went through the ayat and the hadith, etc. When it comes to zakat, when aqamu salat wa atu zakat fa ikhwanukum fi din, if they establish the prayers and they give the zakat, they are your brothers in religion. So some scholars say that the same ruling that we said last time, if they don't establish the salah, they are not your brothers in religion, meaning that they are disbelievers. Some scholars add the zakat to it as well. But the strongest opinion is no, zakat is not taking one outside the folds of Islam. But missing any faridah intentionally is a grave sin, right? And subhanAllah, the one who does not give zakat, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, that zakat will come to them in a shape of a vicious, huge, mean camel and attack that person over and over again. That's the wealth that he hoarded, right? SubhanAllah, there's some Sahaba that were so scared to fall in that category, they wouldn't sleep until their zakat was distributed. Some didn't even want to keep wealth because of fearing to fall into it, like Abu Dharr, radiallahu anhu. He was extreme, SubhanAllah, but it just shows that they were very keen to distribute the wealth. It's halal to be rich. MashaAllah, we have Uthman, Abdurrahman ibn Auf and others, Sahaba, who were considered we could say billionaires. But look how much sadaqah they gave, look how much wealth they gave. Because the more wealth you have, the more you will be taken into account on Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's why the poor people enter Jannah faster than the rich people, because there's more accounting to do for the rich people. So the more you give, the less accounting you have and the more barakah and blessings you have. One of the means, like some scholars say, that the rich shakir, the rich person who is thankful, can have higher level than the faqir sabr, the poor person who is patient. Because why? He's able to help society more and give more. So the benefit is not just for himself, but for other people. Wallahu a'lam.
So let's say, if this year you overpaid zakat, can you reduce the zakat next year?
No refunds, brother. No refund. Allahu a'lam. No, but we should be keen, subhanAllah, it's a faridah, it's an obligation upon us. We should be careful to try to calculate it correctly, so we fulfill our duties just like we do the salah and the, siyam and the hajj, subhanAllah. Zakat is, there's certain calculations just to be on the safe side, alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. طيب, any more? We'll stop here. Yeah, one more.
For Zakah, I know someone needs the Zakah, but somehow I couldn't reach him by the time. Can I keep that money separately for him? Keep it for like separately for him.
You can, if it's not going to delay it too much, because once the nisab is reached, it should not be delayed after that. The obligation is time. Just like when the time of salah, comes, you shouldn't let that time expire before doing your salah. The same thing with the zakat. Like once the time is in, you should give it as soon as possible. But like you said, if you wanted to reach a certain category of people or a certain person by certain, it's not like a long time. Inshallah, it's acceptable. You just don't want to delay it too much. طيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك جزاكم الله خير. This is like a very basic summary. Obviously, we don't want to get into all the details, but like I said, in the future we'll have a fiqh class to get into it. But at least you have the basic understanding of zakat, inshallah. Salat, zakat, and then we'll try to do siyam and hajj, and then Ramadan is coming soon. طيب, BarakAllahu Feekum. Assalamu alaikum.